Would you rather own 100% of a little grape or 10 to 30% of a massive watermelon? Welcome to the Nine Doors Down Show, where we discuss anything and everything about commercial real estate and investing. Let's get it.
Nine Doors Down.
John Lopez.
Nine Doors Down.
Hi, this is Tony Rose.
Nine Doors Down.
Hi, this is Anthony Pimentel.
Educating, capital raising, networking.
Nine doors down. Nine doors down.
This is called a show.
What up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Nine Doors Down Show. Anthony, hopefully we're not breaking any laws on this episode.
Yeah, I hope not, man. I always get nervous. I always get nervous talking to attorneys, man. I don't know what it is. Just start getting itchy or something.
We don't want to violate any SEC guidelines or whatnot.
Luckily for you, I'm the good kind of attorney, right? I'm the kind that's going to make you money, not get you in trouble. So there you go.
Okay. I like it.
There we go. So Anthony, man, I think this episode is a product of an individual moving with intention. It could have been him or, one of his assistants reached out to me requesting to be on our little mini podcast, and it was very humbling to see that request. And it's kind of cool because I feel like, hey, we're now providing value for others because we like showcasing others anyways, before the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Like they said, everything is possible, right? Anything is possible.
Yep. Exactly.
That's right. That's right.
All right. So this gentleman right here, he goes by the name of Bishoy Habib. He is the managing partner of Levacy Legal. Mr. Habib is a highly experienced real estate and business attorney with a proven track record of success. With over 11 years of legal practice in Florida and New York, Mr. Habib has represented prominent developers, investors, and financial institutions in over 1,000 diverse and complex transactions totaling $12 billion. Mr. Habib began his legal career in New York City, specializing in commercial real estate for a prominent Manhattan hotel developer. After deciding to move back to Florida to be with his family, he focused on finance law and handled complex financings for local governments, banks, underwriters, bondholders, and trustees. Just a few years later, he decides to focus exclusively to real estate and business transactions, providing comprehensive legal support to a diverse clientele, including developers, builders, lenders, and brokers. Known as a skilled deal maker, Mr. Habib possesses a unique ability to negotiate and structure deals to his client's advantage, making him the ideal advocate to have in your corner. His clients appreciate his investor-friendly approach, his responsiveness, and his willingness to do what it takes to get a deal done. For those listening at home, you may be washing the dishes or in the shower, or you're on the 5 freeway stuck in Los Angeles or the 15 freeway here in Las Vegas, or you're enjoying the paradise of the Florida Keys. Let's welcome our friend and featured guest, Mr. Bishoy Habib.
What an intro. Thank you. You make me sound a lot cooler than I am, but I appreciate it, man. You guys, thank you for having me on the show. You guys are doing cool things. I know it's a newer podcast, but I've been impressed with the stuff you guys have done so far, and it's my pleasure to be on here, man. Thank you again for having me.
It's an honor, Bishoy. We thank you. And, while I was reading your bio, we're like, okay, this is an attorney. Hey, we really haven't had an attorney on the show. But then as the conversation flows, like 45 minutes later, you're also investing. So I think it was just meant to be, man.
I think so too. I'm an investor at heart. I'm a business person first and a lawyer second. I'm a damn good lawyer, but I'll always kind of view things in the lens of an investor. And I think that's why investors love working with me. And that's my calling, right? Let's get this deal closed. I always tell people I'm a deal maker, not a deal breaker. I know a lot of attorneys who do everything they can to kill the deal or rack up their billables and just, start issues where there are none. For me, it's what's the easiest way to get this deal done and how can I get you paid?
Right. Well, let's dive in, man, because I'm excited for our guests to learn about you and your story. So Bishoy, what was life like for you prior to Levacy Legal?
So my story in a nutshell, I grew up in Florida, and I grew up in a household where I'm Egyptian, so everybody was expected to be a doctor, or a pharmacist, or a dentist, and everyone in my family was. Literally, my dad, my three sisters are all dentists. My mom was a dentist. Dad was a pharmacist, but my dad actually went into real estate when I was before I was born, and so I would actually observe him making his own schedule. He didn't have a boss. He didn't have to be there 9 to 5. He worked harder than anyone, but he made his own schedule and he called the shots. And I always thought that was neat. So I was drawn to real estate from a young age. Followed in that path. Went to law school with no intention to practice law, and but I took all the real estate classes while I was in law school, and then I got out in 2012, and the job market for the real estate investment side was not there. So I was like, well, let me go practice law. So I was in New York for a couple of years, as you mentioned, and practiced doing hotel deals in Manhattan with with the biggest developer of hotels in Manhattan. So did that for 2 years, thought it was awesome. Came back down to Florida for family reasons. And that was 10 years ago now that I moved back down here, and I've been here since. And every year I just kind of get better at my craft. And then, one day you look up and you're like, well, damn, maybe I'll just stay being a lawyer. I'm getting pretty good at it. I'm helping people out. And it's a kind of a neat way to be. It's a different vantage point than just being an investor. And again, you could be an investor and an attorney, which I am, as well as a real estate broker here in Florida. So it's nice to wear those different hats. And then, you asked me before the law firm. So up until a year ago, I was working for the man, and I was working like a dog because I work hard, and, putting all this work in for other people, and promises were made that weren't kept. That's what I'll say, as is often the case. And so I ended up deciding that I'm going to start on my own. And again, this was one of those things that, like, I had never, if you had asked me even 5 years ago, 4 years ago, I would have said, I don't ever plan on opening my own law firm. I don't have any interest in doing it. And a year ago, about 13 months ago, I decided, like, no, I have to do this because this is the only way that I'm going to, get all the hard work that I'm putting in is going to be worth it. And so, I mean, literally from the time it happened till now, there's not a single day that goes by where I am not super grateful I did it. It was very tough to do, but once I did it, I knew immediately it was the right decision. Every day gets better, every month gets better. So now, the problems you have as an attorney is different from the problems you have as owning a law firm. But we're doing phenomenal right now. Things are picking up like crazy. I'm looking to hire more attorneys. We're in Florida. We focus on real estate, business, and estate planning. We also do litigation, which we're actually getting a lot of litigation now because the economy is turning sideways, right? And the market's slowed down. And so you get less deal flow and you get more litigation. And that's just how it goes as an attorney. So, but yeah, that's kind of my journey up until this point, as far as the legal side of things goes.
When I speak with attorneys, and I think in your case, it's very unique because you come from the business side and then investor side, but now you're also, you have your bulletproof vest on with your legal side. And I think a lot of misconceptions with a lot of newer investors is, oh man, it's going to be expensive to have an attorney on your side prior to even like diving into your asset or syndication or whatnot. But what many people don't realize is we live in a lawsuit happy culture here in the United States. And
Oh yeah.
even the businesses or the individuals that that move ethically, there's hawks out there just waiting for that little gap just to pile on the lawsuits. How important is it to have a counsel on your team, whether hired on directly with your organization or you're hiring out as a third party?
Well, those frivolous lawsuits are the reason your insurance premiums are so high, right? In any kind of insurance. So I'm in Florida. Florida, I was just reading the statistic yesterday. We account for 15% of policies, but 80% of claims in terms of homeowners insurance. So that gives you a sense of how crazy things can be. Florida is the number one litigious state in the country, and it's not even close. Number two is half of what we are in terms of lawsuits filed every year. It's a crazy world out there, and people sue just to sue. the value of having an attorney on your side is tremendous. And here's what I try to preach to people: be proactive. It's like your health. If you have terrible health habits for all these years, and then one day you get very sick and you're like, I want to get right. You can't just undo what you did for 20 years or whatever happened. It's the same thing with insurance. You can't skip insurance and then when something happens say, well, actually I want insurance. It doesn't work like that. It's the same thing with an attorney. If you're proactive and you get it on the front end and you get help on the front end, your life is going to be so much easier. You can avoid getting into those issues. But people don't necessarily see it like that. I mean, business people do, savvy people do. They understand, okay, if I pay this attorney $5,000 on the front end, this could save me $500,000 in a lawsuit down the line. But when you're small-minded, a lot of times you can't see that. You say, no, I'm going to save this 5,000, and you get hit with a $500,000 lawsuit down the line. Well, guess what? Even if you did not do anything to merit that $500,000 lawsuit, you still have to hire an attorney. You'd be foolish not to, right? So we're to assume you do. You're going to pay a lot more than $5,000 for them to represent you, and then you got to hope you win the lawsuit. So it's almost like you got to get ahead of it. You can save so much money and just you go to sleep easy, knowing that you're protected. Nothing's bulletproof. Nothing's 100% because anybody can sue anybody for anything, as I always like to say. But it does make you a lot more protected. And we can even include provisions in there that if someone sues you for, falsely, basically, you can collect attorney's fees from them, right? So we put those kind of provisions in there as extra precautions to really make people stop and think, do I want to go down this road?
Welcome to the course on raising capital for investments. In this course, we'll cover the following topics. 1, analyzing your investment strategy. Number 2, discovering potential investors. 3, crafting your pitch. 4, securing your investment. 5, our cheat code. We'll round out the program with our very own cheat code for getting in front of investors and being ready to pitch your investment opportunities. Take action today. Visit schoolofninedoorsdown.com and learn to attract capital.
Wow, man, you described me pretty much, the small-minded. So let me tell you a quick story. I actually also own a franchise restaurant, right?
Okay.
So I was scammed in one of those frivolous lawsuits. So
Okay.
I received a letter. It's you know what it is. It's those ADA ones.
Oh
They
God.
basically
Those
yeah.
are the worst. Those are the worst.
Exactly. So I received a letter, and my head's like, I don't need an attorney, maybe. And I thought I read the thing. It was like, oh, it's probably just a scam. But anyways, thought I can just figure it out. Kind of forgot about it, and sure enough, I did not come to court. And guess what? I ended up having to pay that guy out because I think it was he was below a certain dollar amount. So you really pretty much, if you didn't show up, you lost.
Yeah. You got a judgment entered.
Yeah, that
Default
was a learning
judgment.
experience. I'm gonna tell you right now. So I ended up having to fork up $6,000 for a claim that was completely false. I guess it was my fault, and I didn't. It was a learning experience. I didn't share my part of my side of the story, and I didn't get an attorney. So that was the lesson. I didn't work with an attorney, and that was something like attorneys. You get kind of you get nervous sometimes when you talk to attorneys, because sometimes there's the guys that like want to help you, and there's guys that like you think that they're just nickel and diming you, for every hour, those hourly rates. So maybe you can touch on that. Like, how do you find the right attorney to work with that who's doing who's doing right for you in any
Yeah.
situation?
Right. Yeah, the ADA lawsuits, a lot of those are frivolous. I'll tell you, we had one time being filed, and when we did some due diligence, I don't do litigation, but my partner, one of my associates does, and when he did the due diligence, he went and found that this same attorney represented that same plaintiff in a ton of them. There was a whole slew of them. And here's the best part. We basically got the one that we were involved in dismissed because that same plaintiff had a slip and fall at the same time, the same date, somewhere else. Had a slip and fall. So, I mean, you can't teach stupid, I guess. I don't know
Yeah,
what
you
to
can't be
say,
at two
but
places at once unless he's
that's
a.
right. That's right. So I always love that story. That's what I think of when I hear about the ADA lawsuits, because again, I'm not saying there's no legitimate ADA lawsuits. I'm just saying in my experience, a lot of them tend to be frivolous. In terms of selecting the attorney that's best for you, you need to interview attorneys. My dad taught me at a young age, you never go with one attorney. You have to interview 3 or 4 of them, and you have to see who feels the most comfortable, because there's going to be ones you just don't feel comfortable with. I think word of mouth is very important. Unfortunately, attorneys do have a bad reputation, and I don't think it's warranted. I mean, I deal with attorneys all day. 95% of us are good. 95% of us are honest. 95% of us are not trying to screw the client. We really care. There is 5% that steal money or overbill you or won't answer your call. Well, actually, a lot of them won't answer your calls, but that's not malicious. But in terms of just not being, really caring about the client, there's a few bad actors. And unfortunately, those are the ones that get the headlines. Those are the ones that, get the bad rep. But you do need to interview the attorney. You do need to feel comfortable. I would say that I don't want to call it a closing rate, but I would say that 90% plus of the time when someone's interviewing me, they call me back and say, listen, like, we loved working with you. You made us feel comfortable. You're just like a regular person like us. We could talk to you. We felt like you were listening. We felt like you cared. That's probably one of the biggest compliments you could give me as an attorney, right? And I get those calls a lot when they're interviewing. They tell me in the first call, I'm interviewing other attorneys. I never feel threatened. You know what I feel? I feel happy that they're doing that, because then if they're coming back to me, I know they have explored their options and they know that I'm the best option for them, right? I don't have to sell them when they call me that second time. They're selling me, hey, listen, please help us, right? You're the best guy for this. So I always encourage people to go talk to other attorneys. I'm not a hard sell kind of guy. I don't need to be. And to me, hard selling personally just turns me off. So I don't like doing it. So I don't play that game, but at the same time, I know the value I bring. I know I can help people. And for me, like I said, I love working with investors, developers, builders, lenders, people in the financial and real estate game, business owners. I love helping business owners. So that's my clientele, but you have to have someone who's business minded. If you're one of those people, you need an attorney who's business minded. I just took over a case last week it was like a family law attorney. I get this all the time. And like someone goes to them, that's their attorney for personal family law, and they have a business dispute or real estate dispute, and they turn to them. And this person tries to help. They do their best, but this isn't their world. They had been trying to basically, this was a contract breach, and they were using this family law attorney for 4 months, getting no results. And so they called me, they found me, they called me. They're like, can you help? I'm like, yeah, like, what have they been doing? And they showed me, and I'm like, yeah, this isn't going to work. 2 weeks, I got the result that they wanted, right? Because but if they asked me, can you help me with the divorce? I would say, hell no, call your family guy, right? Because it's just different areas. So you have to make sure that you're dealing with someone who's like-minded, if you're a go-getter, they're a go-getter. If you want to close deals, this attorney's going to work late to close your deals. This attorney's going to work on the weekends if he needs to. Whatever has to get done has to get done. That's my mindset, and that's how my clients think. I think you have to make sure you're aligned in a lot of ways with your attorney.
The alignment is huge, Bishoy. I mean, I'll tell you a story. So Anthony and I, we operate a 506B fund, and we've had it for a couple of years. Going into it, when we were speaking with various attorneys, obviously I was kind of intimidated too, right? It was my first time, like a lot of this legal lingo, it's very fresh and new to me. But I remember relaying our experience with him to just like regular customer service as like I'm in retail. I don't know if it was because we're such a new fund, but we didn't feel like we got the attention nor the turnaround time that was promised to us from the get-go. And it set us up for a bad taste in our mouths. Once the fund was launched and we got the docs, everything was fine, but it took much longer than expected. And now we're in a position where we're helping other fund managers, they could be co-GPs, but now they want to get into fund of funds and want to use a special purpose vehicle or a fund. But now we're talking to, various attorneys to kind of like what you suggested. And for me, I'm looking for the basic customer service stuff as far as like turnaround time. Are you delivering on what you promised? What can you touch on as far as like your experience and like what separates a great attorney from one that attracts a lot of business?
Yeah, well, you touched on a really sensitive subject for the legal field, and that is responsiveness. And so when you read my background, you read about the law firm, and if you go to my website, levacylegal.com, Levacy legal.com, you'll see the law firm was found on three premises, right? Three core principles. And this is literally the three most important things to me and my law firm. Number one is responsiveness. Number one, go look on the website, right? Number two is being investor friendly. And number three is being trustworthy. Okay. Attorneys have a major credibility issue right now. They have a major issue in terms of their responsiveness. They have a major issue in terms of their communication. The number one complaint about attorneys, and it's not even close, is I can't get a hold of them. I don't know what's going on. They're not communicating with me. And so as I've gotten busier, I understand it a little bit better, but let me tell you something. I was at a law firm, and it was basically several law firms ago when I was an associate. It was basically boot camp, and they were a very successful firm. But if you went 1 hour without, like if you had an email and it went unresponded for 1 hour, you would get in trouble. I think in hindsight, it's a little bit, it was kind of like a mind F, because they would like test you and email you on holidays, like the partners would, and kind of play mind games. But I'll tell you something, I was there for 2 years. You will always get a response from me. It is burnt into my brain. And you know why it's burnt into my brain? Because every single client I had was shocked and impressed by how responsive I was. And I never forgot that, and I never will forget it, because it's such a differentiator. I don't have to be smarter. I may be smarter, I may not, but that's not the point. I don't have to be smarter. I could probably charge more, and I could get away with a lot more. And when I say that, I mean, we can mess up as attorneys in other ways where, as long as you're communicating with the client and you let them know what's going on, even if there's issues in the case, they're okay because they understand not everything's perfect. It's not going to go perfect. So if we get a bad ruling from the judge, if we're negotiating and it's not going the way they want, if we're not getting the terms they want on a contract, they're okay. We can give them bad news. We just have to give them news. We have to communicate and say, look, this is what's happening. Unfortunately, this is not the way we wanted it to go. Here's how we're going to try to fix this, right? That's the biggest thing. And so that's what I've literally built my practice on. And I tell the people at my office, anybody who works for me, you absolutely have to respond to every single thing on time. 24 business hours is my rule. I don't do 1 hour because that's kind of crazy. 24 business hours, either you or you delegate it to someone else. And I got to tell you, the response has been tremendous. It really has, because that's just not something you see in this day and age. So it's super easy. I mean, it's not always easy, but it's a concept that's easy to do. And then you just got to implement it. So I couldn't agree with you more. It's the most pressing thing for me as an attorney. And then, of course, doing good work, doing quality work, getting my clients the best deals, because a lot of what I do is transactional, negotiating, protecting them, all that stuff you assume, and for me is very important, but it all starts with the communication and the responsiveness.
Yeah, man, I love it. I feel good now. You're talking to you about just what you're telling me, but yeah, some of these customers just want to be heard, or some of your clients just want to be heard, and make sure that you're helping them and taking care of them. So customer service, what we call it nowadays, is it's especially in this day and age, is like everybody needs to get a response now. When you buy anything online, it needs to be like same day shipment. You know what I mean? It's like it's really tough nowadays. But yeah, why don't
Yes.
we shift over to now the real estate side? How did you become or get that? I know you started. You mentioned that your dad got you into real estate. Like, what was your kind of like your first deal, and then you're like, oh, this is pretty cool. Let me keep doing this.
I had been investing passively in real estate since I was probably in college, because we were involved in funds with different, real estate groups. And a lot of them we ended up investing a lot with the group in New York that I was the attorney for. And And so was passive, right? So they would be like funds. Initially they were preferred equity, a preferred return, excuse me. So we'd make like whatever 16% on our money. And I was in college, whatever I had, I just threw together. And I know my dad was always supporting that. And so it was cool. And then I'd roll that money into more money and kind of keep going. And then it became, as I started making more money, I kept throwing more money into there. So really the limited partnerships is where I did a lot of my investing for a long time. Um, Now we've shifted. So now in addition to the law firm, which takes up probably most of my day on average, the legal stuff, we own a company called Capstar, which is kind of two things, right? There's a brokerage. We have 20 agents that work under us here in Florida. It's called Capstar Real Estate. We do retail, but we also focus on off-market opportunities and investor-friendly opportunities. And then we have Capstar Investment, which is really pioneering a lot of different things. So we do wholesale novations, wholesale, different things like that. But what I'm most excited about is we are working now with some really experienced land people, and they have proprietary software that basically tracks the path of progress. So you could see every permit that's been pulled in the state of Florida. You could see every Publix that's being built. You could see where every apartment complex is about to be built. All that and way more data in real time populates. You could do all kinds of searches on it. With that information, now we have our team. We have 10 full-time employees based in Costa Rica. And now they're reaching out to these sellers in the path of progress. Would you be willing to sell your property? Now, this is all off market. And so we've had a tremendous feedback from these builders here. We have a Rolodex of about 3,000 plus builders, developers in Florida. We're in Florida right now. We're going to take this national in the future. And these builders and developers are just salivating because they're looking for land. They're looking for that next deal. And remember this, the life cycle of these deals now is not, this is 2, 3, 4, 5 years, depending on the size of the project, right? So they're trying to fill their pipelines for 2028, 2029, 2030, even though the market's a little slow now. So the feedback's been tremendous. We locked up 5 deals in the first month and a half, 2 months. We're actively hiring for that role right now to have someone full-time in the land. And so we really think that we're reinventing the way land transactions are going to be done, because I've been in the room with these builders who are doing massive numbers, and they are living in the 80s and 90s in terms of land sourcing. It's incredible to hear how they source lands. I mean, they're literally driving and then going on the county website and then trying to like mail these property owners. And we're doing it, I'm not exaggerating, 100 times more efficiently than they are. So there's a huge need there. There's a huge need, and we're trying to fill it. And we literally don't have the bandwidth right now. That's what I was on the phone with my business partners with before we got on is, we got about 10 or 12 people we got to interview for this, but it's very exciting what we're doing. And I don't know much about the land space, so I'm learning as we go, but it's a great space to be in. And like I said, we're in Florida, very high demand. Even though the market's slowed down, the builders' appetite for land has not slowed down. I can tell you that.
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating that you're even identifying value add opportunities when it comes to land, and you just identifying, the 80s and 90s and even the early 2000s way of thinking of acquiring the land and driving, and it's very
And
similar
shaking
to
hands
and shaking hands,
and
yeah,
getting the guy's name. And I'm not saying it's not a personal business. It'll always be a people
right.
first business. But what I am saying is there's a way more efficient way to do
Yes.
business nowadays. Now, we still have to meet, shake hands, and we love
Yeah.
doing all that. But that's not how you start the deal. That's how you end the deal.
Right. Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more, especially nowadays with communication and technology. Like there's so much other efficient ways to get in front of the seller. I wanna ask you a question around co-GPs. We've seen this with deals, whether it's 506B and 506C. I don't think it really matters with my question, but what can you suggest for co-GPs to approach a deal the right way? Because I see a lot of deals that are out there like, hey, you're gonna have a role in the deal. Yes, they use the term capital raising. Hey, you're bringing in 250,000, 500,000, 1 million, right? But when the deal kicks in, they're just like they're hopping on, just like they're literally hopping on Zooms, and it's just the operator cascading information down. The co-GPs aren't really participating, nor I think some of them don't even want to participate, just for the fact they want to get a piece of the acquisition fee. What have you seen in that area, and how can we fix that? Because guys like that, it sets a bad precedent for those that are, we're trying to approach real estate the correct way.
I think one of the most important parts of any partnership, of any joint venture, of any kind of a business arrangement is defining the roles of the parties. Okay. And I have to say that when I put together, I do these JV deals, I do these GP deals, I've done every kind of deal you can imagine as an attorney. And when I put these together, honestly, you could say it's the most important part of the document. What are the rights and responsibilities, and where does the buck stop? And does this person who's bringing in money, for example, do they have any say? Or are they just, a GP on paper or collecting a fee, but they actually have no say when it comes to it, right? They're just the line of communication for their money, right? For their investors. So I would say that as much detail as we can put in the documents regarding the role of the parties and the limitations of the parties, that is a very good starting point for a legal document, right? Because that's where, to your point, John, that's where I see a lot of these legal issues come up. And so, we have to put protections for both parties. I mean, I put protections for the party I'm representing, but we have to put protections in place there because both parties they do have risk, and so we have to mitigate that risk, but we also have to make sure that the business opportunity is proceeding with the people that should be operating, right? The operators, the people with the experience, and nobody's stepping on their toes, nobody's trying to interfere, nobody's meddling, and nobody has the right to do that. So depending on who I represented, now if I represented the money guys, I might have a clause in there that listen, if this isn't going according to plan, we can take over the operations if these metrics aren't met, right? Maybe I try for something like that. But if I'm in your shoes as the GP actually operating, I'm putting in there in no uncertain terms, you at no point have any say with anything, and you're a silent partner, and that's the extent of what you're doing, right? So it just depends on the angle, but you touch on a very important point for sure.
Yeah, thank you for that. Now, as far as your projects, where you're identifying land, are you working with GPs, or is it entirely your company that's acquiring and then bringing in investors?
So it's a good question. On the dispo side, what are we doing? So what we've done so far, and this is the luxury of having a brokerage, right? What we've done so far on the first 5 deals is we have done it on a commission basis. So we found the buyer, and we found the seller, obviously found the land, and we found the buyer. And so we're taking a commission on those, right? On both sides. It's all new in terms of how we want to structure it, right? Because we just started this land project 3 months ago, and we just don't have the bandwidth. So once we put someone in, I think we're really going to see it take off. But already, like I said, in a month and a half, it's been crazy, right? And so that's one option. It's not necessarily the one that we're most excited about, but it's a very easy, straightforward, everyone can understand it. No one gets confused, right? We have other options. We can take the deal down, right? We can take the deal down ourselves. We work with engineers, we work with land entitlement companies, and we work with developers. We can actually wholesale the land, right? So if we are buying it, and this is where our inexperience with land comes into play because we're not that confident yet to know what the valuation is. But if we can wholesale it and make, $500,000, buying it for 2.5 and selling it for 3, we could do that. But then I think what we're most excited about, and what we have calls on we've had calls with a couple builders who want to do it, is JVing with them, right? So listen, we'll find this land, we'll roll our fee into your project, and then in 2 or 3 years, when you finish with this multifamily, we get X percent, and we came in on the ground level with this much equity, and then, we get 5% of the sales price, right? Whatever, obviously we negotiate. So that's the long game, right? That's where we want to be in the future, the JV deals, but it just has to make sense for everybody in order to work.
No, yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that just shows you like how flexible real estate can be. I mean, just the fact that you can make money in real estate in any any avenue, right? Because you had the
Yeah.
option. Let's say you pick up a piece of land, you can go get it entitled, and then you can wholesale each parts. Depend, each if you segregate them. So you can do so many things. Like you said, wholesale, take up, get a small equity when you find an investor. Like, it's just it's so cool. That's why, John and I love real estate. It's like there's just so many options, and then of course the tax benefits.
Yep. Yep.
Pretty
Absolutely. There's a
awesome.
million ways to skin the cat. We're
Yeah.
just getting started. We just have one or two different avenues that we're really excited about right now. We have a few more smaller things, but like those are the bigger things. But man, there's a million ways to make money. You just got to go out there and figure it out. Just do it.
That's the problem with real estate, though, especially for a lot of beginners. There's just too many ways to make money, and I think people get paralyzed because do I
They do.
wholesale the deal? Do I hold on to
100%.
this? Am I JVing? Am I
100%.
GPing? And they're just over analyzing altogether. And I think what happens with that is you lose a sense of your buy box. When your buy box is in like 50 different places, not a lot of people realize your pool of investors actually shrinks because you want to
Yeah.
stand out as, for one asset class, versus the other. And that's kind of like why, Anthony and I, even though we've done co-GPs and, we've done joint ventures, but we've really started making our stride 2 years ago in the fund of a fund model by working with trusted operators. With your experience on the legal side of things, what are some pros and cons that you see using the fund of a fund business model?
Well, I think that in terms of the liability, you just have to be careful there because you kind of touched on it, right? You're leaning on other operators. So you have to be very confident in what they're doing, right? You really don't have too much control over what happens versus if you were operating it yourself, you do have that control. If something goes sideways, even though you may try to disclaim liability, if it's a very ugly situation, it could still come back to bite you, and I'm not saying, again, let's go back to the frivolous lawsuit. Doesn't mean you did anything wrong, but if I was an investor and I got wiped out and I gave my money to you, even though you weren't the one controlling it, I would come after you. I mean, I wouldn't, but I'm just saying like a lot of investors would come after you and wherever you ended up putting that money. So I think you just have to be careful, but obviously the flip side of that is, if these are people you trust and they're doing good work, it's a great business model for you, right? It just, I think that's the most important thing is who are your operators and how well do you trust them? And exactly like you said.
Yeah, real quick, I want to touch on something you mentioned that you started off as a LP and you kind of just stuck with that. So, all our listeners, we deal with like guys who just want to be passive, and then we deal with a lot of, people. It seems like a lot of our network is all want to be active, right? But sometimes it can be very difficult. So we try to also educate our listeners that sometimes you just may not have it to do something that you're managing the entire deal because it's just too much work. So it's okay. You can still, like what you just mentioned, you still can make money and grow your capital by investing passively. So I think that was a great point you touched on, that just people don't understand what it takes to, put an offer on a deal, take it down, get financing, and then once you close it, get to the finish line, then guess what? Now you got to manage it. Then you got to figure out the asset management part. Then you got to deal with construction, property management, and make sure your business plan is working on, renovation. So I think that was a great point, and I just wanted to make that point about, being an LP is still growing your capital. You don't have to be the guy calling the shots.
I've been in funds where they cashed me out in less than a year and I made 30% on my money. So,
Exactly.
I mean, what are we talking about here? You just got to
Yeah.
look at what makes the most sense. Don't make it an ego thing. Just look at it as a dollars and cents investment. And trust me, I love LPing because I'm a busy person. I'm not going to manage an asset. I just don't want to. Could I do it? I could do it. Do I want to do it? No, not at this point in my life. Maybe in the future. if we were going to do, and we always talk about doing a fund, because the fund, we have so much access to capital and we have so much access to deal flow, and we are just not operators. We're not, and we don't. And then it comes down to, who do we trust to operate this, right? Like, I would rather lose my money than my investors' money. That's how I always felt. And so it's getting to that level of comfort to open a fund that we absolutely have the person on the back end that could handle this, right? Because we could bring two of the three prongs, right? The deal and the money, but the asset management or the property management, whatever you want to call it, we don't have that piece right now. So the operational side of things. So, and we have the contacts for it, but that, again, that's years down the line. That's not where we are today because we have enough on our plate. So, I'll tell you this. I'm making in the bank right now 5% on my money. I'm like thinking, okay, so if I do like an average investment with some risk, I'm going to make 10%. Or I could put my money in this. It's not even a CD, it's liquid. I could put my money in here until I find a really good deal and make 5% on it. I'm like, that's a no-brainer. Now, I'm not happy with 5%. Nobody should be, but it's 5% for zero risk, right? I mean, as much risk as the bank failing, I guess. But to me, it's like people just, want to just do things to do things. And it's like, no, just think about it. Like, that money's not moving unless I can make close to 20% on it, right? Then it might be worth the risk to me. But I'm not moving that money to make 9, 10, or even 11%, right? That's all that risk for another 5% is not worth it to me, right? So you just have to really look at it in the right kind of way. And I did want to comment on one other thing you said, which was about niching down, right? And staying in your lane. And I think if I have to tell you about our story, that was a kind of an issue that we had in the beginning. And it's not specific to us, because I feel a lot of most businesses, most people go through this kind of identity crisis like you were talking about. And it's totally normal. Do not feel weird. Do not feel bad. Don't feel like you're doing anything wrong. You just don't know what you're good at. You don't know what you're going to want to do. And a lot of times it falls in your lap. You get one deal. You're just like, holy crap, this was a really good deal. Nobody else is doing this. Or you make one good connection and it changes the trajectory of your business and even your life if you're in the right spot. So we had that same issue where we were just, when we kind of we blew up here in Tampa Bay, because between me and my two business partners, we had a lot of people that knew us in town. We were very well connected, very well liked. And so we were blowing up on social media when we kind of went live last year. And so every single person in the market was trying to connect with us and do deals with us. So we would meet with a self-storage and a land and a multifamily and a single family developer and and this and that. And all of a sudden, we would have all these cool meetings. And at the end of the week, every month, every week, we would just be like, all right, we're still back where we started. We haven't done anything. We're just talking about all these things. So the struggle, especially with ambitious people like us, and on all your listeners, if you're listening to this, you're ambitious, is that you want to do so much. You want to do everything. And I'm here to tell you exactly what you guys are saying. It's just try to lock in on one or two things. And that's really what we've done with the land stuff. And it's been a tremendous, results so far. And I know it's hard, because even in my law firm, I'm still trying to niche down a little bit more. I'm 1 year in, so I'm still in that, trying to figure out, like, what do I really want to niche down? Right now, I'm still doing general real estate, business, and estate planning, right? Eventually, I might get into a subsection of that and just really hone in. So it's going to explode your business, but it takes time sometimes to figure that out. But absolutely, that's the way to go.
We need you on this podcast later down the road. I know we could easily talk for like another 2 hours. And
I agree.
just with your experience and like where you're going. And also, like, Anthony and I, we're going to reach out to you, offline, in regards to some of the business stuff that we were talking about a few weeks back. As we wind down, we're going to get into our lightning round. And this is a section where, hey, we just want our listeners to get to know Bishoy, where it's not so buttoned up with a tie, right? Just a more of a relaxed version of Bishoy. So the first question is, what is your superpower?
Oh man. Superpower. I don't think I have a superpower, man. I just try to do the right thing. I think that's really one thing I'm very proud of with myself, man. I just try to always do the right thing and do right by people. And I think it's not always easy and it doesn't always pay off right away, but I think that's been a very big secret to my success.
That's a big superpower. That's something that even people outside of business needs to work on. I like that answer. All right.
Yeah.
It gets easier when you start off, it's harder, and then you kind of do it so much and you're like, you know what, I've been doing it right the whole time. I'm not gonna start doing it wrong now. And so you just kind of turns into who you are. But yeah, it's
Yeah, man.
definitely the right way to do things.
You want it to become your reputation, and you, my
That's
friend,
exactly it. That's exactly it.
you have
That matters to
reputation.
me now more than anything else. I'm 12 years in. I've never had any sort of issue with anybody or anything, and I'm like, dude, it's just not worth it. There's no amount of money or headache. I'm gonna do the right thing at all times, and that's just what it is.
Yeah, sleeping well at night helps.
That's right.
So
That's right.
this next one, Bishoy, I am beyond confident that this is a difficult question for an investor, but even on the legal side, this is probably going to be the most difficult question you've ever been asked. Are you ready?
Let's go.
All right. You're stuck on an island. You don't have not a single soul is around you, no family members, business partners, friends, limited partners, people trying to sue you. There's no internet, no phone connection, no social media. However, on that island, you are able to bring your smartphone. But because there's no data on your smartphone, you're able to load up MP3s. What is that one musical artist or one musical album that you could load up?
Eminem.
Oh man, I didn't even finish. I didn't even finish my question. You already dropped Marshall Mathers, dude.
Eminem, the Eminem show. Yeah, the Eminem show. One album, one artist, easy money.
Before he blew up like with Dr. Dre, man, he started making his name through the Wake Up Show, all the battles out in the Detroit and like Cincinnati with like Scribble Jam. And one of the earliest singles, this is probably 1996, 1997. And I just remember hearing it for the first time on the Wake Up Show. I was like, it's a quirky beat, quirky rhymes, but it was Eminem's I Just Don't Give a IF. Remember that song?
Yeah, oh yeah. That's off his first album. He probably had some version of it on his before the album.
Yeah, man. So it wasn't a difficult question for you.
Super easy. Way easier than the first question.
There you go. Great answer, man.
All right, mine's gonna be really easy, man. It's two parts. So are you a tropical or mountainous type of person? And where's your bucket list if you were gonna travel?
I mean, I'm Egyptian and I grew up in Florida, so I tend to be okay with the heat. But I think because of that, I'm more excited about the mountains. I'm going to Switzerland in 2 weeks with my wife. We're going to Europe,
Ooh, nice.
and we're super excited. So we're doing Italy, we're doing Cinque Terre in Italy. We're doing Amsterdam for a few days because she's never been, and then we're gonna do Switzerland. We're gonna spend the most time, which is like 5 days, and I'm probably most excited about that because that's the one place I really haven't been yet, and that's mountainous, obviously. So I would say mountainous on that. And then bucket list, I'm dying to go to Japan. I finally did Asia last December. We did Thailand, and Thailand's cool. It's cool. Phuket was one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. That water is ridiculous. The longboats were awesome, but Japan, absolutely. And my buddy's there. It doesn't help. He's there. He's been there for like 2 weeks, and I keep seeing his stories, and I'm like, every time he posts sushi, I'm like, is that the best sushi you've ever had? He's like, yeah, every time it gets better. So Japan, Tokyo.
Awesome, dude.
Awesome, Bishoy. Now, for our listeners, how can they get a hold of you, whether it's for legal side or even investment opportunities? Any websites, emails, social medias, please share.
Yes. So I'm on social at Attorney Bishoy. That's attorney spelled out Bishoy. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. You could find me on LinkedIn as Bishoy M. Habib, like my name says there. For the law firm, it's www.levacylegal.com, Levacy legal.com. And if you want to email me, bishoy@levacylegal.com. and it's 813-553-2699.
There you go, everyone. If you want to have a bulletproof armor on the legal side of things as much as possible, reach out to Bishoy as well as investment opportunities. This concludes another edition of the Nine Doors Down show. Please like, follow, comment, and share with your friends and family. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and pretty much your favorite podcast platform. And on that note, this concludes another edition of the Nine Doors Down show. Bishoy, thank you again for joining us. Everyone
Thank you,
have a great
guys.
day.
Appreciate you guys.
Peace.